Nicola Sturgeon is a coward and the SNP are dying like a squashed worm. Not my words, but the words of one Scottish independence voter I spoke to this week. Let's recap on the absolute cluster shag that was this week for the SNP, shall we? The husband of former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was arrested in connection with an investigation into Scottish National Party finances. Peter Murrell was questioned after being taken into police custody on Wednesday morning. Police Scotland said officers were carrying out searches at several addresses as part of the investigation. Mr Murrell resigned as the party's chief executive last month, a post he had held since 1999. Just a week or so after his wife, Nicola "Wee Nippy" Sturgeon, stepped down as Scotland's First Minister, citing tiredness as the reason. Tired of running from the collapsing walls of her empire, more like a flaccid penis at an orgy. A spokesperson for the former First Minister said she had no prior knowledge of Police Scotland's action or intentions. Shut up and shit the bed. What in the buckfast is going on? Of course she knew full well. Come on, man. They added Miss Sturgeon will fully cooperate with Police Scotland if required. However, at this time, no such request has been made. Miss Sturgeon stood down as First Minister last month and was last week succeeded by Humza Yousaf. Humza Yousaf, the new First Minister, said it was a difficult day for the SNP. No shit, Sherlock. Although the only thing difficult about it for me was maintaining the energy to keep wanking at the images of a crime scene tent on the lawn of Nippy Towers. Mr Yousaf said, I obviously can't comment on a live police investigation. Obviously. Jeezy peeps, man. It's each man for himself now in a women's prison. But what I will say is the SNP has fully cooperated with the investigation and it will continue to do so. I bet it did, and I bet it will, Yousaf. He added that the party has agreed to carry out a review on governance and transparency. Oh, beautiful. Come on, Yousaf. That's like the BBC investigating Jimmy Savile. Sure, there were hundreds of children complaining, but can children really be trusted to know whether it was Savile's thumb or his cock? Police Scotland said Miss Sturgeon was at the house when officers arrived at 7:35 in the morning to arrest her husband. By 10, there were 10 uniformed officers outside stationed, along with 3 police vehicles. The house was sealed off with blue and white tape while a tent was erected, like me, in the garden. Police officers could be seen searching a small shed and storage box in the back garden. A police photographer took pictures of officers and looked at a laptop. But all they found were photographs of semi-naked butch women and 65 Braveheart DVDs. The curtains and blinds remained drawn. There was no sign of anyone at the property. Meanwhile, at least 6 marked police vehicles were parked outside SNP HQ, and officers carrying green crates and other equipment were seen inside. In the afternoon, 2 vans left the city centre building while police officers remained stationed outside. In July 2021, Police Scotland launched a formal investigation into the SNP's finances after receiving complaints about how donations were used. Questions had been raised about funds given to the party for use in a fresh independence referendum campaign. 7 people made complaints and a probe was set up following talks with prosecutors. Miss Sturgeon, the then First Minister and SNP leader, had insisted that she was not concerned about the party's finances. She said every penny of cash raised in online funding campaigns would be spent on the independence drive / a remake of Braveheart where Sturgeon played every character like a Scottish Catherine Tate. I smell something fishy, And it wasn't just Nippy's underpants, said one neighbour. The timeline reads like a plot from Midsummer Murders. Out of nowhere, Sturgeon steps down. 2 weeks later, Peter Murrell is forced to do the same. And 2 weeks after that, the police arrest Murrell and plough through Nippy Towers like a rapper does Kim Kardashian. Nicola Sturgeon gave multiple reasons for her resignation, but the police investigation into her party's finances was not one of them. Police inquiries have been underway for about 18 months and were triggered when questions were raised about how more than £600,000 raised for independence campaigning had been spent when there had not been an independence referendum for it to be spent on. The SNP has previously said it always intended to spend an equivalent sum in that way. The SNP can't count and think the best way to rehabilitate rapists is to saturate them with vulnerable women. Some weeks ago, the investigation reached a crucial stage when officers consulted the Crown Office on how to proceed. It's now much clearer what direction they received from those who oversee criminal investigations in Scotland. And that, in my opinion, is what triggered Sturgeon to step down. Everything was lost and she knew it. According to a statement, the SNP raised a total of £666,953 through referendum-related appeals between 2017 and 2020. The party pledged to spend these funds on the independence campaign. Questions were raised after its account showed it had just under 97 grand in the bank at the end of 2019 and the total net assets of 272,000. Last year it emerged Mr. Murrell gave a loan of more than 100 grand to the SNP to help it out with cash flow issues after the last election. Then the SNP's chief executive loaned the party £107,620 in 2021. The SNP repaid about half of that money by October of that year. At the same time, an SNP spokesman said the loan was a personal condition made by the chief executive to assist with cash flow after the Holyrood election. Fuck me. He said it had been reported in the party's 2021 accounts, which were published by the Electoral Commission in August last year. Weeks earlier, MP Douglas Chapman had resigned as party treasurer, saying he had not been given the financial information to do his job. Really? Mr. Murrell resigned last month after taking responsibility for misleading statements about the fall in party membership. The number of members had fallen from 104,000 it had seen 2 years ago to just over 72,000. So, where are we now? Well, the investigation continues and it's clear it will go on for some time. It will be hanging over the SNP through the general election campaign. Will that make a difference? I don't know. But I do know one thing. Humza Yousaf couldn't run a tap. The SNP reeks of corruption and the rats are running faster than the Scottish transport system. We now have a situation where Westminster and even the Tories look competent by comparison. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the mad thing is, this is just the beginning.